Daith da, Ewi Nagan. Welcome to podcast number 83. Well, Pocahontas and Mark Henwood. Never in all my days did I ever think I would mention they pair in the same sentence. But more about that directly. Since I spoke to you last, we've been a few different places as well as our usual trips to Glyn Valley, like down Perthilly, St Michael's Church down there at Rock, handsome little church, and when the tide's in, beautiful. It's a little hidden treasure actually, because a lot of people don't realise 'tis there, because as you're approaching it, you end up in a farmyard, and so people turn round and go out again. But 'tis beautiful. So we've been there, obviously the crematorium quite a bit, our chapel for a service, Nanstallen, Catholic Church at Bodmin, and also at Blisland for dear Mavis's funeral. And she was a great help to us as a church warden over the years. Lovely to see the church full there. And 'tis a blessing really, being a small family funeral directors like we are, conducting funerals where we was born and brought up. You know so many people. So like dear Mavis, knowed her for years. And then today, Eglesale with dear Mary. We've known her and Mark, her husband, for such a long time as well. And church was full there at Eglesale today. And the weather today have been absolutely fantastic. It was just like summer. Absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, it was lovely to see so many people there. And then this afternoon, we were at Glyn Valley for dear Jamie's funeral. And like I say, 'tis lovely that we're caring for people that we've known forever, but also 'tis very emotional, really. And when my podcast started, if you listen back, 'tis all about my memories growing up in Wadebridge and stuff like that. And I was going to do one on Glen Road, because I was born there, grew up there, spent many years there. I haven't got round to it yet, but I might do it one day while I'm still picking mother's brains about some of the names of the people that were there. And at the back of our house, there was a lovely grass lane, and we was right down the bottom, and 'twas our playground. 'Twas a fantastic place to play in the summer. So all the houses in our part of Glen Road backed onto this lane. And then from the other side, you had Trevanion Road, and their houses backed onto the lane as well. So when we was very young, we had a little gang, and we used to play together all the time. So 'twas me and my sister, and then 'twas Linda and Yvette, a bit further up, and then up the end, Richard and Stephen. And then the other side, the Trevanion Road side, backing on, was Paul, Jamie, and Kirsten. And then also in and out, you get Leon and Stuart that would come down from the top end of Glen Road, and they play with us as well. And looking back now, 'tis like we all say, 'twas back when the summers, every day was sunshine. And we had some fantastic times, really did. Like I say, in and out of everybody else's gardens, and back when we didn't have a care in the world. And obviously 'twas tragic when dear Jamie passed away a few weeks ago. And so today we had his funeral, and sunshine was super, absolutely lovely. And of course, Jamie being a biker, we had to have motorbikes. And there must have been, it was between 20 and 30 motorbikes there. We met at his mum's house because of Trixie, because obviously Father David had passed away now. And 'twas brilliant. So we had our hearse leading. So I rode my bike along with all the others. So we followed the hearse and then the limo and that behind. And then when we got into Glyn Valley, the bikes then led the way. And I tell you what, he would have loved it. I'm sure he would have loved it. It was fantastic. And 'twas lovely to meet up, or to see all the old gang again. Obviously, you're limited for time. At crematoriums, you've only got the hour slot where you're only allowed like half hour in chapel and then about 15 minutes to talk before you drift off. So you can't have long conversations, but to see all the old gang there again brought back a lot of memories, really. We'll miss seeing Jamie around town. So wherever you are now, mate, I hope you're back on a bike again, and we're thinking of it. Well, the marathon is nearly here. Only did 6 miles on Sunday, which was good, tapering down. Couple miles on Tuesday, 3 miles yesterday, and that's my last training run. So my foot still a bit sore, which is a beggar really. Tisn't as bad as it was, but it's still a bit sore. I'm hoping now I got a couple days that it will improve a bit. But every time that foot lands, you just feel it a bit like, and you're thinking, God, I got blooming 26 miles this, or 26.2 miles of this. But there we are. I know one thing they do say, running up in the last week or two of the marathon, get plenty of sleep. And I do try my best. I don't sleep very well anyway, but it's sod's law. We had night calls for quite a while, and then in the last 10 days, I've lost count of the numbers of times that I've been called out in the middle of the night. In fact, one night last week, we had 2 calls in the middle of the night. And night before last, I woke up at 3 o'clock and your mind's going, I couldn't get back to sleep. So I thought, right, last night, I'll have a good night's sleep. And we had another call. So I'm absolutely whacked, really. I'm working on autopilot today. But I'm open, so 'tis Thursday I'm recording this, so I got Friday and Saturday. So fingers crossed I'll get a couple of good nights sleep before the race. But thank you to everybody that have donated. I looked just now, and including the gift aid, we're now over £2,000, which is fantastic. All going to the Alzheimer's Society. So if anybody wants to, 'tis on the Just Giving page. I say there's no pressure. I ain't got to make any targets at all. I set myself a little target of £2,000 and say with the gift aid, we've gone through that. So that's proper job. Thank you very much. And I'll keep you updated on the marathon. There's something I'm planning. Whether it'll work or no is another thing. Another thing I meant to say, if you listen to this, streaming it or downloading it, on iTunes with Apple, they've started a service now where they've got a transcript of it. So whatever I say, they actually put up there in writing. Now, I did have a look at a couple of episodes, and they even attempted to try and transcribe Death Da and Obi Nakan. They just go straight into the podcast. And I just had a quick get. I didn't go all the way through, but it's quite amusing. Some of the words they've put there ain't quite what was said. But when I got 5 minutes, I'll have a good look and let you know what I think about it. If you've got iTunes or Apple yourself and you download it, you'll be able to see it yourself anyway. So now going on to Mark and Pocahontas. And the reason I say this is because in this interview today, Mark does actually mention Pocahontas. And a lot of you might have heard her name because Disney did a film about her a few years ago now. There's talk Indian Queens is named after her because Pocahontas, there's talk that she was a Red Indian who was brought over to this country, and she landed and she travelled up through, I take it, going up country up to London, and they actually stayed in an inn in what is now Indian Queens. And I think she made that big of an impression, the story goes, that that's where the name Indian Queens come from. It's named after the inn that she stayed in originally, but then the whole village. I know I used to help years ago. There was dear Les Varco. He was the undertaker there at Indian Queens, and he used to hire our hours. And I can remember with going to Pocahontas Crescent before. So I will delve into it more because there are different variations, but that's the one that I heard was that she was an Indian, comer from America, stayed there the night, and that's where the name come from. And I'll delve into it perhaps a bit more because I got Terry Simmons up my sleeve, going to do a podcast with he in the future. Say he's quite a youngster, but I will get on, so perhaps I'll look into it a bit more then. So that's the explanation of today's title. Right, so it is over to Mark now. I've gabbled on a bit longer today than I normally do. Sorry about that. But over to Mark for some more memories from me, and then I'll speak to you directly, rounding things off. So, here it is.
Yeah, we had the plumbing firm. That went on for, until 25, 30 years ago. And we did the zinc line coffins and lead line coffins, and I was out in the garden somewhere. We got a blank plaque that come off a coffin, and it says on the top, "Here lies," then there's a gap, "died on," then there's a gap.
Yeah.
How it ever got here amongst.
And that was in Chapel Lane, your workshop?
Yeah, Chapel Lane.
Yeah.
There was 3 stores there originally, which were 3 and 4 story, which were all wool stores.
All right.
And they all got, in the floors, they had double hatches that had a winch that pulled up the middle. And as you pulled things up, the hatch would come open, the bale of whatever would go through, and they would fall down.
Yeah.
So it's perfect health and safety. You couldn't fall down the hole because there wasn't any hole there. But that one over there had in the floor a tanning pit.
Right.
And it was made out of granite. And the pit was about 8 foot long and about 3 foot wide, about 2 foot deep. And they put hides in there and tan them. Actually, which is now the Pippa's shop.
Yeah.
Just inside on the left-hand side of the door. And when we come to concrete the floor, we thought, we'll leave it there. It's too big to take out. Left it there. But that was, the stairs in there were so upright that unless you were practiced at it, you couldn't walk down the stairs. You had to come down backwards. But when we was there, especially the apprentices and everything, we got them down the stairs all day, every day.
Yeah.
And you get somebody to come in, had to go up to the office. How do I get up there? Well, you walk up the stairs. How do I get up there? And they were nearly upright, but got used to it.
Was there many men that worked on the firm then?
There was about 6 to 8 plumbers and 2 or 3 apprentices all the time. Gilbert Hicks was storeman and driver.
Right.
And if you had any trenching to be done, Gilbert would be in. I always thought that was funny with Gilbert. A trench. You're going to dig a trench to put a pipe in. And Gilbert would say, "You boys, me and Brian Gregson were digging a trench in at Bodmin. Gilbert started one end and me and Brian started the other end. And Gilbert had got halfway at 60 years of age before us 2 at 20 years of age had got a quarter of the way." And he said, "I'll tell you again. Cut the sides. The middle will look after itself. And if you've got a pick and you cut down the sides of a trench, the middle is loose. But when they're hanging and banging and crashing and giving it larrups and all for working, sweating like a pig."
Yeah.
And Gilbert, they were slowly coming up through. Gilbert, he never had any children of his own, and he was the world's best father ever. He would come in and say, "Here, I found this, boy." And he would make me machine guns out of packing cases and flush tank handles. I know it sounds stupid for anybody today because you just go to Amazon or whatever and it'll be there tomorrow. You come out and you have this thing and you look at it and you think, that's a, oh God. And the number of trolleys he made for us, because there was Cedric Thompson, Barry Allen, Barry Fulford and me out in the back road.
Right.
And we spent hundreds of hours together. The other ones are all older than me, but we spent hours out in the back road. And Barry Fulford, one day, we had a trolley out there. Barry was having a go. He came down over the back road, and there was no technical stuff like brakes or anything. Came down, went to put his foot down, and his shoe came off. And he wasn't going to stick his sock in the ground. No. And he went right down over the hill, right across the road in the bottom, and where was it called now in the bottom? Plonk. Right. Where Plonk was, that was an antique shop. Right. And Barry went down straight across the road, which was then still through traffic, hit the pavement, flew out of the cart, through the door, laid on the floor, and the bloke who owned it said, "And do we need an antique, sir?" And we all run down the hill. Barry said, "No, I want my mummy." and we all looked, and we dragged the thing back and checked it out while he was patched up and plasters fitted. Made sure he was working again. And we sat down with Gilbert and said, "Gilbert, how can we put brakes on this?" "Oh, we'll sort that out." Team mechanic, he was in there with it.
So you went girls' school first then? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then boys' school?
Overville, boys' school. When they closed the school up there, Ernest Derry's name was in the school book. That was Dad's stepdad then. Mm-hmm. My dad, me, and Martin, my son. All three of us, the generations were all there. It's funny because Martin now lives up in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. And you talk about your Cornish words. I was up there once and my granddaughter was playing underneath the table. And you don't think because you're in it all the time. She was playing around underneath and I just said, "Mind you don't bally your head when you get out." And Martin's father-in-law and mother-in-law looked and said, "Do what?" And I said, "What do you mean, do what?" "Bal." Oh, I could have said scat. What? So I had to do rough translations.
Yeah.
And things like, they're more explanatory. Mizzle.
Yeah.
Best word in the world. It's not mist. It's not drizzle. It's mizzle.
Yeah.
Please, will the government recognise mizzle as a weather forecast? Because really, it is exactly what it says on the can, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, went through the school and then did me trade. I went out St Austell for a year and Camborne Tech on day release for 3 years. Spent more time travelling on Hawkeye's buses, believe it or not, and a few other types. You spend longer because there was only 2 of us that got on the bus at Weybridge, and then we had to go around the back end of Truro and down through places that I've never been ever again to end up at Camborne. And you'd be driving down on the bus and there'd be no heating in the bus at all. And then said one day, "Mr. Gill, what have you got in there?" Wilf Gill, part of the family over Hawkeye's. Yeah. "I got paraffin stove, boy." So I said, "What's that for?" He said, "Well, when we get down there, all the bus drivers stay for the day."
Right.
I said, "Well, where do you go?" He said, "Well, we all get in one of the buses and we take the paraffin stove in and they sit there with one paraffin stove in a 48-seater bus, which must have been still as colder than hell, freezing over. I used to sit there all day with this, one heater on. And then they were going to put when I finished in there, they were going to put a shed in. But they go down up and down there every day. We were on the plumbing course. We had a special wing at the bottom and 2 or 3 of them just didn't want to be there. We had a couple of teachers that were really good and very skilled blokes. And we had a couple of the boys that he kept on getting everybody in trouble. He broke glasses in the windows. And so one Christmas, lecturers was very good. Your bus doesn't leave until 2 o'clock, but we'll finish lunchtime, go and have an oven fresh pasty. Good Lord. You can have a pasty and you can have a pint and then go home. We had a couple or 3, maybe even 4 pints. And we come in, one of the blokes that was a real pain in the butt, he had gone shopping. Not that there was much shops to go to. And he parked in the car park when he come back. And it's only alcohol introduced into this thing. It felt like a good idea. So we decided that we put his car, he had a Reliant 3-wheeler. And there was a tree in the car park. And there was a little branch that had been cut off. So there was enough of us here. We picked the car up and hung his front wheel up on this. And somebody found a bit of board and that, and they put Camborne's Christmas decorations and stuck it on the back of his car. And there was this thing up the tree. And we went home. And you know, I never went back down, and I never know how he got his car out of the tree again. But it seemed a good idea at the time.
Yeah. So you started then, when you left tech, straight in with the plumbing then?
Yeah. You did apprenticeship, you do the cutting chases, taking up floorboards. If there's muck or somebody's drain's blocked, you're a boy, get their drain rods off you go, you'll learn to do it. But then in those days there was no, you never had electric on site until the customer moved in. Mm-hmm. So everything was hammer and chisel.
Yeah.
And I always remember that at school. It was last year up school. Mr. Owen, a metalwork teacher, Owen the Iron, as we used to call him. What are you going to make, Mark? I said, well, Mr. Owen, can I make some chisels and that for when I go to work so I can... Well, you're not supposed to do that. You've got to make what's on the curriculum for... Yeah, but chisels, I can't hit a lot with curriculum. And he helped me out, and I had a 3-foot bar, a 2-foot bar, and I made a bolster, which is a hard thing to make. Yeah. But he helped me out, and he made them all up and tempered them. And I've still got one up in the garage, and I'm 75 in 4 days. Yeah. So it was just that things were different. Times were different. Yeah. There was no stress. My first motorbike I purchased, which was a Lambretta scooter with all the panels taken off. Right. And that took some work though. I think it was £10, 10 shillings, which today seems, well, that's about a pint. And that's a pint in a packet of crisps, isn't it? Yeah. But in those days, I had to save up quite a bit. My first vehicle I ever owned was a ex-London GPO minivan. Got it back, and it looked like a ex-London GPO minivan. He put it in the garage, painted it, and it still looked like a minivan. So Mike Joel was working out Joel's quarry. I went to school with Mike. Mike said, come out, I'm experimenting with spraying. So we went out and masked the bottom of the van out, which I had painted. And he sprayed a black roof on this van. And very professional, Saturday morning job. Sprayed it on the top. Put 2 stripes down the roof. The van went at least 20 mile an hour faster. He'd go faster, and they'd come out. And I thought, it looked a lot different. 540 GYX was the registration. I think I still got the number plate, just like I ever get the van back. And drove this thing on, lovely. And then going past Tollgate filling station, the bloke pulled out of the side turning and hit the front, hit the side, and rode the thing off. Oh no! And I just sat up on the gravel pile in the lay-by, thinking, "That's mine. You aren't allowed to do that," But yeah, that was the first vehicle. And I worked out the other day that since then I have owned, was it 38?
Something like that.
38 different cars and vans and military vehicles and motorbikes and stuff over the time. A lot of it I wish I had kept. There's some cars I had a Vauxhall Sports Hatch, and they only made 60 of them. The Vauxhall had a Vauxhall Chevette HS, 2.3 litre in a Chevette body. That went so incredibly. Leaked oil everywhere, but went like a whirlwind, it did. Again now, there was one sold the other day, £48,000. There was only like 100 of them made. Yeah, everybody looks back at that, I suppose, when you think about it, don't they? Yeah. One thing that I always thought was funny, because when Dad went to London, or went to Gravesend, Martin went on holiday and we was babysitting the house. Because I had his death certificate, because he died at home, so I thought, find this place. Sat nav, looked it all up, drove, got down there, pulled up outside the place. And I know it may sound silly to a lot of people, but I, for a second or two in time, stood outside the house where my dad and my granddad lived. A person, granddad I'd never ever met anyway. So looking at this house and everything, and I said to Sue, down the road, there's two big, like, nissen huts, and they had markets in them, and one was a silk market, and the other one was a food market. And I remember, because there's a lot of Asian people up there, the smells of the smells were actually amazing. And I said the church was next to it. The cemetery was there because buried in that cemetery was Pocahontas.
All right, yeah.
Hence the name of Indian Queens.
That's right, yeah.
I said, we'll go down and find, I know when he was buried, I said, we'll go, you trotted off into the, Marks and Spencer's, got a bunch of flowers. Went down over the road, and I went, look, there's one of those nissen huts. Found that. Went through the other side. She was a bit amazed by all these silks. Oh, material they put in there. Anyway, got at the other end of there, and I said, the church is there, and the cemetery is, and I'm pointing at nothing. And I thought, I'm sure it was there. And Sue said, there's an information centre over there. I said, right, so went in. Had to wait for the person in front. They went off. Goes up to this lady. I wonder if you could help me. I said, I'm looking for the cemetery, the one that Pocahontas was buried in. And this woman went, oh. I said, what does that mean? I said, we've come by the church and the statue of Pocahontas is out in front of the church now. But that used to be in the cemetery, didn't it? She went, yes, you're right. So? Well, the cemetery wasn't being used and wasn't being visited. So they decided to make it into a car park and a children's playground.
Oh, no.
So I'm standing there, Sue's standing behind holding this bunch of flowers. And I said, so what are they doing? Well, they've kept all the headstones and they've bought a field and they've propped up the headstones and they're all numbered. And she did give me the phone number of the vicar. If you phone the vicar up and you tell him as much information as possible, he will send you a photograph of the headstone. And I just looked at her, I said, so what's there? He said, well, there's a car park for the civic centre and a children's playground. I said, what about the bodies? He said, well, they're underneath it. They never took any of them out. They took the headstones and they flattened it, tarmacked it. And I'm standing there, I said, well, look, thank you very much. And as I've got nothing to do with it, would you like a bunch of flowers? And thank you for your help. I give her a bunch of flowers. And she stood there. As we walked out, I turned around and she was standing there with this bunch of flowers thinking, who's that Cornish bloke that just left here? I came out and I said, I don't believe they just...
No.
Then I thought about it after. How do you contact anybody? He died up there,
Yeah.
1921. I wasn't born for nearly 30 years after that.
Exactly.
So, no families around. They did a survey. They made me laugh. She said they put a camera up to see if anybody came and put flowers in. Well, I thought if their way of being quicker, you'd have looked in to see if there was any flowers, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If there weren't any flowers, nobody's putting them in there. They put a camera up. But yeah, they went in there. But the Pocahontas she's stuck right in the middle of the front of the church. This great big statue. The statue must be 12, 14 foot tall. Beautifully carved statue. And so we went to where Dad used to live, which is a part that I had never been to, because he had two half sisters up there, and one of them married a bloke who was called Hardy. Ian and that would know from that part of the family, Mr. Hodge and Company.
Yeah.
They had garages up there. The old Les, clever thing, after the war, he bought old army lorries and diggers. All right. And they had demolition to do. Yeah. And he would clear a whole block that had been knocked down. And instead of being paid, he'd have the corner site. And he'd put in a petrol station. Right. So outskirts of Gravesend and Kent areas, he owned over 80 petrol stations. And then his son came on. He then had, on one of the dual carriageways, he had the Guinness Book of Records record for the longest petrol station forecourt. And there was a post at one end and a post at the other end, and there was 1.125 miles. In other words, there was just 2 roads that went in, and the garage was in the middle like anybody else.
Yeah.
But instead of having like 500 yards to go in, he had half a mile. It was the longest garage forecourt in England. He had a car, 1908. And then the first time when I was attacked, I went in there. It was mounted on a mobile roundabout. And this thing was just slowly turning around. And when I was about 6 or 7, first time I ever went up there, I came on, I couldn't work out.
Yeah.
I said, imagine you got a car up and it's going around on it. I was, never seen that in Weybridge.
Talking about cars, was it your mother's funeral or your father's funeral where it was over chapel? It was before we had limousines. I don't know if you remember. Fred Carrard.
Oh, don't I remember poor old Fred?
Yeah, he was driving the following car, and he had a brand new Ford Orion.
In black.
Yeah, and he was so pleased with this car.
Yeah.
And he parked it up outside Macmillan's solicitors, didn't
That's
he?
right, out the way, but ready to go.
Yeah, walked over to us to say he was ready, and as he was walking over, a car, lorry, someone come down, bus come down.
Didn't see him at all.
Crashed right into him.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it was panic stations.
Yeah.
I had to go down and we had we just bought I think Granada estate.
Yeah.
Silver then, wasn't it? Father rung he up and I had to get that one out the garage and come and pick it up, didn't I?
I said, I'll be all right. No, Fred's too embarrassed. He said, he was crying.
Oh, yeah, devastated.
And I mean, it's hard to think, but he was a lovely man.
Yeah.
But he was there, and his whole life had just stopped.
Yeah.
Because some miserable sod had hit the back of his car. I said, well, go in your car, Fred. Oh, I can't drive you in that. He wouldn't have it. No. So I always remember that, yeah.
But he got it repaired, and I think he went round the clock 3 times with that car. Over 300,000 miles he did.
Yeah.
And he was such a lovely chap, but he would never swear, but he'd always say frackin'.
Yeah, he made of his own.
Yeah, frackin' Fred. But sometimes it didn't come over quite like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it for this week. And there'll be more from Mark in coming episodes. I think for me Cornish dialect word of the week, I'll use a word that Mark used in this episode, mizzle, which, like he said, it is what it says it is. A mixture of mist and drizzle, mizzle. So that's what we'll have for me Cornish dialect. And I think for me Cornish word of the week, we'll do the word for grave. You did hear in this episode that Mark went up looking for his granddad's grave there, and which ended up being a car park and a children's play area. But I thought if I do the Cornish word for grave this week, which is bedth. Bedth. So there we go. Right, well, 'tis getting late. I've now got to go and do me packing, make sure I got everything before I head up to England tomorrow. So, wish you well, do Guinness, Curno Bisficken.